So now that we've got everything in CAD and we know how it fits together, how do we get this set of plans into a set of plans that we can cut out of foam board? So the first step in this process is going to be to separate all the sort of subcomponents of the aircraft from each other. So we're going to bring the wings over here, going to bring the vertical stabilizer over here. We're just going to sort of lay these out and give ourselves a bit of working room. So let's start with the absolute simplest case here, and that's this canard right here. This face right here is what we'll actually cut into the foam board to get this canard. So with this, we don't even have to unwrap and flatten it, but we can, and it'll just give you this right here. And we're going to have two of those. What we're going to do is we're going to take these parts here, and then we're going to line them up with the parts that we've unwrapped from it. Next up, it's a bit more complex of a case, although it's still pretty simple. We've got our vertical stabilizer. It's got the vertical stabilizer part of it and the rudder part of it. We can select both of those, unwrap and flatten, and there we go. And again, we're just trying to orient everything so that we can figure out what parts have already been unwrapped and which ones have not. Now this part right here, depending on which way this is, the hinge is going to be on one side or the other, because if you put this down and you cut it out, you would cut the hinge on one side, whereas if you flip this right here, the hinge would end up on the other side of the part. So it doesn't really matter in our case because I can choose which side we're putting the servo on, but if you had a servo on one side of the fuselage and you did this, you would have to pay attention to which way things are flipped so that any asymmetries in your design work themselves out. Next, this one's a bit harder. We'll move on to the thrust tube here. So this is fully modeled. Usually when I would model this, I would only model that exterior surface because that's the only one I'm concerned about. But we should just be able to unwrap and flatten that. Yeah, there we go. So we've got our thrust tube right here. Next easiest is probably canopy. So we'll bring that over here. Now this is when you start getting into making one component out of multiple parts. So you can see this canopy, it's got these four sections that are going to have to be done separately. And then it's got all these formers and stuff inside. So we'll try and separate these out first. And then for each one of these, we can unwrap each one of those individually. So those are the skins of the canopy here. And if you sort of orient these, you can see how they form the shape of the canopy there. Another thing you can do at this stage is actually color this, because I'm going to be using black foam for the canopy, maybe for the canards, I don't know. But definitely for the canopy, I'll be using black Dollar Tree foam board. So I'll have this as a separate color to remind me of that. Now for these pieces here, we'll have to use our brain a little bit. So if we have this, I think we should just be able to actually unwrap these. This will make it somewhat simpler. Unwrap that. Yeah, that looks good. So if you're familiar with how foam board planes are usually built, the width of the foam is 3/16 of an inch. And so if we want this former to fold up, essentially this area right here is going to have to be paper. So the actual foam will come up that 3/16, and this will be paper here. And so then when we take this stuff here and we rotate it like this, that paper will be on the bottom of the foam there, and so it'll keep it good. And this will rotate up into there, and that's called a C-fold in the flight test terminology. And then that little 3/16 gap there is so that this can fold up besides this one piece. This one's actually a bit more complex because we have two formers here. Or actually, wait a second, I did not model one of the formers on this one, that's right. So I didn't model the other one of these formers. So there's going to be this, and then there's also going to be a piece that's just this. So we'll have something that looks like that, I think. Except it's not going to be that because this piece is going to stick up 3/16, so we're going to have to cut 3/16 off of the bottom of this. So now these two pieces comprise this part, but with this guy right here extruded another 3/16 that way. That's what that part makes up. This one, it looks like the unwrapping failed on it. So this will happen sometimes, especially with parts that have holes in them and stuff, but you only get part of it unwrapped. The way you get around this is by unwrapping sort of subparts of the actual part. So you can get that one easy, and then you take this one, unwrap that, and then you can just take these two parts, and then you can merge them together. So if we take this, we're probably gonna have to align it up and make sure it's all rotated properly, but once we do, we should just be able to connect them together like that. and then make that a group. So now this is that thing unwrapped. So that's the canopy all laid out. I think we'll actually move this so that the unwrapped parts are on one side of the split, and then the geometric modeled parts are on the other side. I think the landing gear pants would be a bit easier to focus on here. Let's start with just one of the front ones. We can get rid of one of the back ones because they're duplicates. So this guy right here, this won't actually be part of the face, but we're going to have this guy wrap around the front there, so we can try and unwrap these. There we go. And then we're also going to have this guy on the bottom. There we go. And then this guy is going to be in here. And you got to think that this will be dead space. This is a C-fold on the front here. So then this needs to have its sides offsetted. So if we take this, offset it by 3/16, I should be able to actually, if I redraw this face, yeah, it should allow me to offset it then. There we go. And so this is just creating those 3/16 gaps on the sides for these guys to fold into, essentially. So that looks good. Reverse that face. And I'm using, in this case, the darker color to denote where the foam is peeled off of the paper. So we can explode those, make that a group. There we go. Unwrap and flatten those. And you can see here it actually sort of messed up. Or is that because, yeah, you can see here the there's a bit of funny business going on here where that's not quite, it's not all in a straight line. So what I think we're going to do with that is take this and then just get it so that the long edges match up. So we'll take this away and then add it back, rotate it a bit there, line up this corner, then rotate it back. So now those long edges line up, and so we'll get the most overlap with the paper there that we can. There we go. Extend these, extend those. Most of this is just you have to sort of visualize in your mind how the thing is folding and what needs to be clearance to where for it to work. So if we reverse these faces, that's that part done. So that'll be the wheel pants for the nose gear. And it's going to be a similar process for the main gear. Next, I think we'll start on the fuselage here because this will start to get a bit more complex. So we'll start here. This entire nose cone is going to be its own separate thing. So we could just take this out real quick. Another thing too with these entirely closed surfaces, you want to see where the seam ended up. So with this one, you could see that it actually put the seam somewhere in the middle of one of these pieces right here. So to get around that, you can actually just take this bit and then move it where it rightly belongs. Or you could do the unwrapping in multiple steps, but this works just as well. So now this is completely unwrapped properly, and the seam is somewhere between on the corner of one of these pieces, one of the curved pieces, one of the normal pieces. So anyways, this next part, it looks like we can probably make all a single part maybe. I'm thinking about how the best way to do this would be, because I think this, I'm thinking this and this and these and this will all be one part, including the stuff on the other side here, because I think we can do, like, the length is going to be fine on that. Yeah, it's only like 14 inches long. And if that's one part, we might be able to get away with this being one part here, like this all being together, but then this is here, and I don't want to have seams between here and here, so I think I'm going to have to make this, all of this stuff is going to be one part, and then we'll figure out these connecting pieces on the bottom. We'll put those in after this unwraps, because hopefully this unwraps well. And it doesn't quite look like it, so what else we got going on here? We got all sorts of weird stuff going on here. So this is some of the fun you're gonna have to deal with. It's basically just messing around with the unwrapping tool to get it to do what you want it to do, because it's not perfect, and especially if you have weird geometry that's sort of odd, it won't like it, and so you got to try and find stuff that'll work. So maybe the problem's with this. Alright, let's try and do everything up to here. So now we're in the point where we're subdividing the part to see if we can get some subdivisions of the part to unwrap properly. Yeah, so that goes good. So now can we get this part? No, so we'll have to subdivide this one further. Can we get this to go? Yes. Can we get this to go? Yes. Alright, so now we can assemble all these into whatever that thing was. So now we can try and unwrap this. That's good. Now this is the fun part. So do these... Oh, there's just enough space in there for this to work out. Sometimes you'll have it where these things will actually overlap, and then you have to... Essentially, you have to split that into multiple parts, so that they can't all be made from the one same part. And that's no fun. And then we can copy these guys over to the other side. That looks good. Move this guy out of the way a little bit. And then these should all combine into one thing. There we go. That looks good. And that right there is the entirety of the outer skin of this section of the aircraft, right there. So now we could add this part. This one should hopefully unwrap pretty easy, although it does have that hole in it. There we go. And then we could focus on the one side of this here. So I think we'll keep that as the same part as this. So when we fold that up, we'll get this piece here, these pieces basically, including those little rounded bits at the top, and those pieces. So that's all of what this is. This one might be weird because there's that hole in it. We'll see what happens. Looks good. This one actually looks a bit weird here. What's going on? Oh, you can see it sort of, instead of using these as the surface from which to unwrap everything, they use these guys. So now that should all be in a symmetrical configuration there when we fold it up. Of course, that isn't all of the fuselage that there is. We still have the internal bits, so we'll get started on those. You know, I guess I could do C-folds on these, but I wonder how the unwrapper would react to this. We'll see. Yeah, it does not quite like that, although if I just take this, I got half of what I need, so I can just take this and flip it, and then join those two together, and that'll work out for what we need it to do. I have to have one that looks like this. This is going to be our battery tray. And then one former that looks like that. And then up front here, we've got more stuff. So we've got this face, and this one for the nose gear mount, and the Canards servo mount. We've got this guy up front. This is going to have that sort of seating area for the cockpit. Maybe put some magnets in there. And that guy is not liking to unwrap, so maybe we just do one here. Then we do this one separately. Then beyond that, we just have these two guys. So we'll just extract these formers here, and then we'll make a copy of both of these. And so that is everything in that section of the fuselage right there. This rear section of the fuselage, just start with the formers real quick. So I think those are the only two formers in the actual thing, so we could take those out. I said earlier that I wanted to make this entire bottom one piece, so we'll go ahead and do that, and we can do that because foam is 20 inches by 30 inches, and this is less than 30 inches in that dimension, less than 20 inches in that dimension, so that's good. We might have problems with it fitting, actually, once we unfold these wings, but we'll see about that. And then it's going to be farther out on that one side, but it won't be on both sides. So that's 9 inches. It's still within. Even if we had that on both sides, it would be good. Another thing we need to keep in mind too is that these faces right here on the top, these actually have that these cross lines in them that we need to preserve for when we do the scoring and such. So those ones are flat, but these ones you can see the cross lines are in it, so we need to draw those in for scoring when we go to fold this thing up. With that said, we get to work on this next part. Now this is going to be fun because this is more of a hole than the other holes, because it's not just a hole in the face of a part, it's actually a hole between two parts there. So these are on the same plane, but this is sort of in the way. So I think what we're going to do to help it out some is we're just going to patch that up real quick and then try and unwrap this and see what it does. Okay, yeah, so that's looking correct. And then we can take that hole back out when we don't need it. So, and then now that we've got this, we can punch out that hole in the center that we don't need and make this all a group again. So now we get onto the wings, the final part. Let's first start just by getting all the stuff inside the wing here. So there's our ribs out of it. So now we can focus on this wing skin here. This one's going to be pretty fun. I think we're going to start just by separating it into an upper and a lower half here. Let's make it easier on ourselves. There we go. So we got an upper and a lower wing skin. So hopefully this lower one will unwrap well. Of course it doesn't. Let's try the upper one here. Upper one went good. Okay. So let's see if we can unwrap the elevon as well. There we go. So now try and combine the upper one and the elevon. Oh, this upper wing skin also needs those tabs on it, so we're gonna redo that unwrapping. So there's our top wing skin and elevon. And there's our lower wing skin. And then we're going to move this in. And we can't actually join that at the wingtip because there is no wingtip on the bottom of the wing, because we have that sort of undercut going on. Get that, reference that there, and that is our completed wing skin right there. And of course we have two wings, so we'll take that and mirror it. So this right here is every single foam board part that we're going to have to cut out. Alright, now that we have all the stuff ready to get put on foam board, we actually have to get it onto foam board. So I need to get this into a format where I can get it into basically a PDF, and then take that PDF and tile it, because of course a sheet of foam board is a lot bigger than what your standard printer can do. And then take those tiles and stitch them all together so that I can cut the plans out. So to start, we're going to figure out how big a piece of foam board is. And so standard piece of Adams Ready board is 20 inches by 30 inches. So we're going to just take this, make that a group, and then essentially we're just going to start laying out all of our stuff onto sheets of foam board. So I'm going to copy a couple sheets. We also want to keep in mind we want to have a, for example, a separate sheet for the black foam board, so I'll keep that just off to the side. And we'll put our hatch stuff on there. So let's try and lay this out nice so that we don't waste too much of the foam board here. But for the other stuff, we want to try and squeeze it all together within reason as much as we can, just so that we don't waste too much foam board. So we actually fit that a lot tighter than I thought we would. So we'll be able to take some more parts from over here. Alright, now onto the wing sheets here. Hopefully, ooh, I don't think there's going to be an orientation which we can get all of this on one sheet, unfortunately. Maybe if we do something like this. Oh, it's so close. So now we get to the problem of what do you do if the part is too big for a sheet of foam. So one of the things you can do is you can cut it along a seam that already exists on the part. So for example, if you're doing wings, I might take the leading edge and cut it on the leading edge and have the upper and lower skin separate, but I sort of want to keep these together, so what I think I'll do is just cut off the part that isn't interfering, or that is interfering rather, with its fitment, which is this little back piece here. So, and just cut this off, and then this will be its own little separate piece. And then for the wing sheet, of course, we can just take this, and as long as we flip it that way, we're good. So now those are mirror images of one another. So now, in order to use this plugin that I have, this is going to be different for whatever CAD program you're using, but I have to essentially just take these, explode all of these, and then I have to make sure that they're all connected. So I actually draw a line between all of these. And then if I highlight these, and I say, then I can go ahead and export this to an SVG folder. So we're going to call this black1.svg. And it's got all the configuration and stuff here, but we save that. Then if we look in our SVG folder, I wonder if do I have Inkscape? Yes, I do. And this is what it looks like. And you can see the subdivisions on the face are drawn in right here. So what I like to do on parts that are just going to be rounded, I like to delete these. You could do this also in SketchUp just by deleting the face and then redrawing it. But I'm going to keep the red guys on the smaller ones because that'll be where we do our score cuts for making the folds on the formers. So. Alright, that looks pretty good. And then I also like to go change this to 2 pixels, just makes it a bit finer so you can get a bit greater precision when you're doing your cutting. And then I like to save that. And then I'll take this and save a copy as a PDF. And I'm going to do that for all the sheets. With the wings here, we can just use Inkscape's built-in flip function to mirror them, and then save that as our 5th page. So that's it as far as CAD goes, actually. We've got everything in the format that we need to start printing. We'll still reference the CAD model when we start building stuff just to see where stuff fits or if we need to measure stuff to see where it goes. I mean, this is pretty much it. All of my project files end up looking something like this when I'm done with them. So now that we have these pages, we can open them up and go to print them. And so when you get the print prompt here, you're going to want to select poster, and then overlap 0.005 is fine, and tile scale 100%. Then you go to page setup, and you want to make sure this is whatever the size of your printer is dealing with. So mine uses letter size. If you have a thing that can print tabloid size, which is like double letter size, it's even better because that means that each thing you'll be doing will be 4 pieces of paper per foam sheet instead of 8, which is what letter is. But I mean, you can print it directly, or I'm going to choose Microsoft Print to PDF, and then we're going to call this here PDF tiled. So black1.pdf, and we're going to do that for the rest of these. These wing sheets here, since they're smaller, are only 6 pages, which is nice. So then if we take a look at our tiled PDFs, it'll be separated by page. And these are the plans I'm going to print out to build the aircraft. Next episode, we're actually going to start cutting some foam, so that's going to be pretty fun.